Claves have quickly become one of the most important elements of my compositional process in the last year or so. They help establish a common rhythm around which all of the different musical elements of my track can revolve. And in doing this, they help provide a lot of rhythmic clarity and intention. So in this video, I want to show you precisely how I use claves, how I write my own, and how you might use some of these ideas in your compositional process, whether you're writing electronic music, like we cover on this channel, or rock, or pop, or hip hop. But this video isn't going to be a comprehensive history or even an explanation of what a clave is. For that kind of information, you can look elsewhere. Maybe I'll put some on the screen, so we can quickly get into the stuff that's more relevant to the style of music that I make. I am, however, going to provide a kind of working definition for a clave as it relates to this video, and this is what I came up with. A mildly syncopated rhythm that may act as a rhythmic framework for a musical composition, usually 2 to 4 bars and usually emphasizing dotted rhythms or groups of 3. So a little bit removed from the historical use of the word clave, while still staying true to the spirit. Before we start writing our own claves, I am going to give a few examples, and I'm going to show you how these rhythms can be used to inform other musical choices like melody, bass line, chord progressions, drum patterns, etc. So I have 4 common rhythms here that you've probably heard before that can function as a clave, as we're using the term. On this track, I have a simple clap running through some delay, and that delay is there just so you can hear the individual eighth notes, which we're going to think about as our kind of primary time unit, meaning we won't subdivide beyond the eighth note. So no eighth note triplets and no 16th notes for the sake of this demonstration. The first one we're going to go over is probably the most common. It's called the tresillo. It's the only one here that's actually 1 bar long, but I just repeated it twice to make it 2 bars long. And it's often conceptualized as 2 groups of 3 and then a group of 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So here's an example of how we might use that rhythm to write some simple drum patterns. So the kick drum here is the piece of kit that is playing the tresillo pattern note for note. You can see this open hi-hat and the snare are also emphasizing that last group of 2, that in this instance happens to occur on beat 4. So listen to this pattern again and really try to hear that tresillo pattern, that 2 groups of 3 and 1 group of 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. This next example is actually one of my favorites. So the single tresillo is 2 groups of 3 and a group of 2. The double tresillo is actually 4 groups of 3 and 2 groups of 2. Here's what it sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. And here's how you might take that idea and develop it into an arpeggiated sequence. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. This is pretty similar to how that Coldplay song Clocks uses the single tresillo. I'm just applying the same principle to a double tresillo. Next, we have the son clave, or son clave? Son clave? Son clave? Hang on one sec.
Son clave.
So the son clave is probably the clave you think about when you hear the word clave. This is what it sounds like. You'll actually notice that the first bar of this rhythm is the tresillo. And then in the second bar, we just have hits on the beat on beats 2 and 3. I think part of the reason this rhythm is so popular, if I can, speculate a little bit, is actually because there's an element of tension and resolution to this rhythm. In the first measure, we have these 2 groups of 3, and then the second hit emphasizes that offbeat. And then in the second measure, having those strong hits on beats 2 and 3 can kind of feel like you're resolving that tension. You could, I suppose, conceptualize this as 2 groups of 3, a group of 4, a group of 2, and then another group of 4. That's not necessarily incorrect, but I think it's usually conceptualized as having like 3 hits in the first measure and then 2 hits in the second measure. In fact, there's a variation of this rhythm that has 2 in the first measure and then 3 in the second measure, which is sometimes called the 2-3 son clave, I think. But anyway, here is a bass line that I wrote based off of that son clave rhythm. And then finally, we have the rumba clave, which is very, very similar to the son clave, but you can see this third hit is actually on an offbeat, when in the son clave, this note was on the beat. So this also has that kind of tension resolution thing, but even more so, because we have two notes that are off the beat and then two notes that are on the beat, before we cycle back to the one and land on the downbeat again. And here is a little like Dorian chord vamp I wrote based off of this rhythm. So I hope that these simple examples are causing the wheels in your head to turn a little bit. So let's talk a little bit now about how to write your own claves. So let me actually start by giving an example of what I might consider to be a bad clave rhythm. Something like this. Maybe could work for someone, but isn't personally a clave that I would use. This rhythm feels a little static, maybe. We have a lot of hits that are just on the beat, and even notes that are off the beat are part of this group of 2/8 notes. So it has this very, like, almost marching quality to it. Something like this, I think, could be a much better place to start. We have a nice balance of notes that are on the beat and off the beat. And also there's space to develop. It's not particularly busy. So the process for writing something like this is actually very simple. I mentioned that the double tresillo is 4 groups of 3 and 2 groups of 2. Well, if you look across this rhythm, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of 3, and 1, 2, 2 groups of 2. Something I like to do is grab a pack of playing cards and remove 4 3s and 2 2s. Now all you gotta do is give them a mix, and now you have your very own clave. And this one's kind of interesting because it starts with the single tresillo, and then we have a reversed tresillo. Let's try something else. Instead of going 3 3 2, let's do 3 2 3, and now we have this. You could even rotate rhythms like this by taking the last note, bringing it all the way to the beginning, and then taking everything else and pushing it back to the end. Now we have a completely new rhythm. Now, actually, all of these rhythms I've written so far have had a hit on the downbeat of the second measure. So I want to mix things around a little bit so that we have something like this. Now it's 3 3 3 2 2 3. Now, doing something like this can only get you so far. I actually did the math recently and worked out that you can only get 15 different 2-measure rhythms by using this method. So something I like to do to develop these rhythms just a little bit more is to take one of the groups of 3 and divide it into 2 and 1, like this. So now we actually have this 8th note that's kind of acting as a pickup into the 4th beat. It sounds like this. And now that you have this, of course, you can start moving this around. So you could do something like, maybe I'll mix these around. Now we have this. Now, funnily enough, this part here actually reminds me of a rhythm that's sometimes called the millennial clave, which is da, 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 da. I'm pretty sure you can hear it in Blank Space by Taylor Swift. So you can kind of think about this as a variation on that rhythm. What else could you do? Well, you could use the idea of polyrhythmic resultants. If you ever had one of those music teachers that would have you snap polyrhythms like or then you may be familiar with this idea. When we conceptualize a polyrhythm for performance, it's pretty unlikely that you're actually conceptualizing these as 2 rhythms that are happening at the same time. Most likely you're thinking about a resultant rhythm that is the result of these two different groupings happening at the same time. Like nice cup of tea, dot, 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 or pass the goddamn butter, dot, 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 dot. So let's use that 4 against 3 idea that I was just doing earlier. We have a group of 3 and a group of 4 that sync back up right here, which leaves us with some empty space, but we'll talk about what we can do with that. But if I just play this back, you'll notice pass the goddamn butter. And this rhythm written for a single voice would look like this. To extend this to the end of the phrase, you could delete these 2 notes and then duplicate it across, which is actually how you get the classic dembow rhythm from reggaeton. Or you could just take some of the material from within this rhythm and duplicate it into these last 2 beats. So I could take this and duplicate it over here to fill out the rest of that space. You could also use Euclidean rhythms as the foundation for a clave, which is a subject I'm not going to get into here, but if you want to learn more about them, then suffice it to say that there are a lot of different ways to come up with ideas for clave rhythms. So I want to wrap things up by showing you an arrangement I created using a clave pattern as its foundation. It's a pretty simple 8-bar loop that features drums, bass, pads, lead, and percussion elements. So I'm going to show you the clave pattern, and then I'm going to show you how each individual element relates to that clave rhythmically. But first, let's listen to the whole thing. So this whole arrangement is based around a single clave rhythm. Well, actually 2 clave rhythms. Last week I posted a video about the idea of nested forms, and at the end of that video I recommended writing a series of rhythms based off of that form. So that's kind of what I've done here. You can see this white clip at the very top of the page just features our clap. For this I decided to use an AABA form, meaning that our A clave happens twice, once here, and then we have our B clave, which is a different rhythm entirely, and then we go back to our A clave for the last 2 measures. So let's listen to just the clave itself. And this B clave I just put on a different MIDI note to distinguish it visually. So now I'm going to isolate that clave pattern and the drums that I wrote. If I compare the drum patterns, which is just kick and snare, to the clave, you can see that my kick occurs at the same time as a clave hit does every single time. That being said, my kick isn't just perfectly doubling the clave, because I think that would be a bit much. And for the most part, I just place the snare on beat 3 of every measure, but you can actually see in this B section that we have a couple moments where the snare is doubling the clave pattern, like here, here, and here. So let's listen to the drums and the clave together. I really like here how in the B section our snare gets a lot busier, creating this kind of tension resolution between this B section and this A section. Now let's listen to the clave and the bass sound together, which is being doubled by a sub as well. And you'll notice here that not every single bass note corresponds to a single clave hit. Like this note, for example, is happening on like the last 8th note of this count of 3, and is almost acting as a pickup into this note here, which is happening on a clave hit. So just the drums and the bass together now. I like this because the drums and the bass are clearly following each other, but there's little moments like this where they operate independently. Like, you would expect this note to occur here on this snare hit, but it happens just an eighth note afterwards. Let's take a look at how this pad aligns with the clave, and as you might expect, every single chord is landing on a clave hit. Because the pad is so washed out and doesn't have a lot of ability for rhythmic articulation, these rhythms turn out to be very simple. So bass, pad, and drums now. Now let's take a look at the lead. And the lead here actually follows the clave pretty closely. There are little moments like right here where you have this note kind of acting as a pickup into this clave hit, but for the most part it's pretty one-to-one. So let's listen to just the lead and the clave together. Now, drums, bass, pad, and lead at the same time. And finally, let's take a look at the percussion, which is probably the busiest element. Like, you can see here on this group of 3 that in the percussion I'm actually filling in all of those individual eighth notes. And we also have more of those little pickup notes where we have like this eighth note leading into this clave hit. And we even have 16th notes being played over this eighth note clave hit. And here I actually think the open hat is doing most of the work kind of preserving the identity of the clave, especially in moments where this open hat is occurring at the same time as a chord change or a kick. It really makes it feel like everything is part of one rhythmic family. So let's listen to just the percussion and the clave. And one last time, everything together. So I hope I've convinced you that this is worth exploring. Claves are so powerful, it's no wonder that they've been such a staple in the composition of rock and blues and metal and funk and disco, samba, reggaeton, moombahton. It's difficult to overstate the case. And in combination with the nested forms idea that I talked about in my previous video, if you apply them at the beginning of your composition, it can really feel like everything has a solid foundation that it's standing on.